Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us on the OLBG Friday Night Football Hangout. Great to have you along. Delighted to say there's a couple of other people on tonight's broadcast with me. I'll get to them straight away. Steve, you may remember from last week. Do you want to say good evening, Steve?
Good evening, Sam.
Fresh from a very strong week last week. Managed to have a few winners, I believe.
I wasn't going to mention the fact that I tipped 3 out of my 4 correctly, including the 17-1 correct score, but, you know, as I say, I'm not going to mention it.
Yeah, we don't welcome after-timers here. I will say that the tape's still there on YouTube, so you can check it back to make sure he's not blagging it. I'm delighted to say I'm going to introduce to you tonight from the OLBG community. I've got Gio with us. He is one of our best correct score tipsters on the website, so he's certainly a man to follow, probably more so than myself. So I'm just going to pop you over to Gio, who's going to introduce himself, tell us who he supports, and a little bit about his betting strategy, if you like. I'll pass you over to Gio.
Thanks, Sam. I'm a big West Ham fan myself. I go as the name is Red Hammer on OLBG, and I've been there since the summertime now, and I do the weekly blog for the Hammers as well. I don't really have a betting strategy as such. I'm just a stats man, to be honest, and I go by what I see, watch a lot of football, mainly English football, and I follow my heart mostly, which can sometimes be a bad thing, but that's the way I roll.
You follow your heart. That's not always a bad thing, but for me it tends to be as a Crystal Palace fan. We're going to look at a few different games tonight. We're going to open though with probably the cliche would be a 6-pointer. I've heard people call it a 9-pointer. I'd probably describe this game then as a 100-pointer if we're going to go that far. It's Burnley versus Leicester. A really intriguing affair. On form, you've got to say the last 5 games Burnley have won just one of them, losing the last 2, whereas Leicester, well, they're on top-notch form at the moment. The last 3 games have resulted in 3 wins and playing some great football. So I'm guessing, guys, we can't see past the away team snatching the points. Steve?
No. I'm actually on a really strong bet for Burnley to take all 3 points at home this week.
Wow. Do you want to outline your reasoning behind that? Is it a hunch? Is it some stats you've got? Or is it just the fact it's a relegation dogfight and anything can happen?
Again, you know the way that I work. I'm not a huge form fan. I'm not a huge digging into the details of the team and team news and stuff like that. It's just literally on the numbers. I'm looking at a best price of 2.63 for Burnley at the moment. You know, we're better than 6-4 for Burnley to win at home. I just think that price is the value price out of the 3 options on the win, draw, win market. We know Leicester have jumped off the bottom of the table with a run of form that have seen them win 3 consecutive games, not least, you know, a real comfortable 2-0 victory against Swansea last week. And by the same token, Burnley are winless in 4, losing 3 of those. But the last 3 games, whilst they haven't scored themselves, they've only conceded 2 goals, and one of those has come against Arsenal and going to Goodison Park at Everton last week. I don't think they're and you know, there's another 2-0 defeat down at St Mary's for Southampton. I don't actually think that, although there's a lot of defeats in there, I don't actually think their form is as bad as seeing lose, draw, lose looks. Whereas Leicester, you know, yes, they're scoring goals. They've scored 7 goals in the last 3 games. They've come against West Ham, West Brom, and last week against Swansea. It's going to be a tight game. I can only see a goal in it, but in terms of value, looking at the odds on the game, I would certainly rather be with Burnley with home advantage at better than 6-4 than Leicester at 2-1.
Before I go to Gio to get his view on this game, I've just got a stat that you're not going to like, Steve. Burnley have scored just 1 goal in the last 10 hours and 39 minutes of football. So I'm not saying they're going to concede loads, even though Leicester are scoring. I don't know where the goals are going to come from. Gio, you might have a view on this. Who do we fancy in this relegation dogfight?
I'm the opposite from Steve. I'm on the away win. As you've just pointed out, Burnley haven't scored just 1 goal in 7 games, and it's very good not conceding much, but if you're not scoring at the other end, you're not going to be getting the 3 points. Danny Ings is supposed to be their goal machine, and he's not scored in 8 games now. Vokes has been a bit unlucky with injury, but he's not really hit the ground either since coming back into the team. Head to head as well. Leicester haven't beat. Burnley haven't beat Leicester in eight league games, and I'm not a big believer in head to head unless it stands out, and that one stands out for me. I can't overlook that, so I'm going to go for an away win here.
No, I think that's a very fair assessment. I'm with yourself here. We're not sitting on the fence. But for me, Leicester at around 2-1 best price out there. Burnley's inability to score fills me with absolute fear if you're a fan of Burnley, because you can't get out of a relegation fight without scoring some goals, and that's where Aston Villa have turned it round. You know, Tim Sherwood's got them scoring, and I just, you know, last week I did back them to beat Everton. I thought they might get a result there at a huge price, and they were a little unlucky with some of the decisions, but they were never in the game enough for me. And I'm going to go with a 2-0 win for Leicester. I'll take a score prediction from you all as well. Steve's eyes are falling out.
Before I give you a prediction, I'm just going to argue with you guys about this away win still. You're seriously going to take 2-1 about a team that will be playing their 9th away game this calendar year, and have won just once, losing 4 of those.
They're playing Burnley though, Steve. You know, this is a team that, at the end of the day, if we go on what we know, you'd be looking at a draw then. But you got to find a goal from somewhere, and Danny Ings is off in the summer. I don't think Burnley create enough, to be fair to them. I think they play good, efficient football, and Sean Dyche has worked really well with what he's got. Let's be honest, I don't know many people out there that thought Burnley would still be up at this stage of the season. I think he's worked miracles with them.
I'm going to back a little bit here. I've just looked at who they've played in those games. Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, Everton, Manchester City, Tottenham. They've not had the easiest away game running this year so far. But no, I'm going to stick to my guns. I still think 6-4 for the home team in a relegation battle. I think they can pull something out of the bag. So yeah, I'm going with Burnley. They're the favourites for the game as well, so I'm actually a favourite back here.
Give us a score for it then, Steve. Go on. Put your neck on the line.
Well, I'm not going to be brave enough to say Burnley are going to score a brace. And I'm going to have to rely on Leicester actually coming up with a blank. So I don't want to do a correct score. I'm not going to bet a correct score on this.
No. Just a general idea of seeing how wrong you can get it. 1-0. Yeah. Gio, for yourself, what do you think in this sort of game?
I'm going 2-1 City. Watched the game, obviously, against West Ham a long ago, and they showed a lot of fight, but also Pearson's not scared to throw men forward. Against West Ham, very early on, he threw on extra strikers, he took off a defender and threw on an extra attacking midfielder, and he really threw the sink at us. And when they've got Nugent, Kamaric, Vardy, all up front, they've got plenty of strike power there. The stat that stands out for me, though, in the last 4 games, Leicester have scored in the last 5 minutes of each game, and you can get 65 for Leicester to score the last goal of the game at Turf Moor. There's no time restrictions, so I think better than evens. I think that's my main bet, but I'll go 2-1 Leicester.
That's a really interesting bet, actually, when you think about it, because being the away team, if Burnley do, by some sort of miracle, score a few goals, they're going to be chasing the game anyway. So that's certainly an interesting angle. For me, I'm going to go with the 2-0 Leicester, I think, and I think that concludes our view on one of probably the best game to watch from a neutral's point of view, because it's going to be tense, awful, and anything can happen in these relegation scraps. But we've got a good tea time game, and I say good in the sense that it's an interesting game. I think Man City take on Aston Villa at home. Aston Villa, of course, victorious, but for this very hangout last week, and we were really pleased to see them get the win, because both Steve and I had invested financially in them, and a bit emotionally. I think Liverpool, they should have won the game. They didn't. As simple as. So
good game.
Sorry, Steve.
It was a good game. I predicted goals, and I was more than chuffed to see the first goal in. Although I wasn't too chuffed to see that Liverpool had scored it, but it proved to be a good game.
And I think this is why I've written a piece that will be going up on Google Plus shortly afterwards, and it's just to explain. I think Villa, whilst not necessarily worthy of winning this game, I'd see this as an opportunity to back something like both teams to score. Tim Sherwood is not afraid, a bit like we were talking about Leicester's recent performances, he's not afraid to try and score some goals. they're going to be coming off the back of an interesting cup tie. They should be buzzing. They're probably going to be safe this season, I sense. They're going to have to pick up a few more points. Whereas City are in absolute freefall. Their season has fallen apart. Vincent Kompany's likely to probably miss the rest of the season. I know they've got plenty going forward, but I do think if Villa have a go, and a player like Benteke can get in behind towards the last centre-back, I think they'll score some goals. I'd love to get your take on this, Gio.
Yeah, I think even though West Ham have been playing really poor, we played Man City last week and we still got chances, and one or two of them came from sloppiness in the City back four. One of them, Demichelis, played Nolan through one-on-one with Hart at one point as well. And as poor as we're playing, they only scored 2 against us, and I thought we were there for the taking. Villa as well, I think they're safe. Like I said, they'll be buzzing from the FA Cup, but I think they can relax a little bit with the league and just go out and enjoy themselves a bit more than maybe they have in previous games where there was a bit of pressure on them not to concede rather, whereas this games they can go out and take the shackles off a wee bit like they did in the FA Cup. I think they took the game to Liverpool, and then I think they can do the same at City. And like you said, City's season's just falling apart, but all week there's been media about Pellegrini is he going, but now there's Yaya Toure as well saying he doesn't really want to be at City anymore. He's keen for a new challenge, and it's not the type of thing you want to hear. I mean, they've still got a lot to play for, City. A win, they could go within touching distance of second place, but they lose a couple of games. They've got some teams breathing down their neck to get into that top 4.
Yeah, I'll take a few points from Steve before we then maybe have a quick chat around the manager situation, because that's certainly something that interests me. Steve, Villa, can they repeat the trick? They're 12-1, best price to win away at City.
No. If they were 2-year-old racing at Sandown, they'd be on a massive bounce this week. There's going to be goals, there's going to be plenty of them, but they're all going to be sky blue goals.
You don't see Villa nicking even a consolation at this sort of at the way of play. You know, Benteke's got 9 goals under Tim Sherwood already this season.
He has, but I just think City at home are going to be far too strong for them. I think, you know, they had a great game last week, a great result, and yes, they will be buzzing about a cup final, but, you know, it's a cliche, but the cup final will be on their minds probably. You know, they're going to want to stay fit, they're going to want to appear at Wembley in the final. City have kept 4 consecutive clean sheets at home, scoring 5-2, 3-2 against Newcastle, Leicester, West Brom and West Ham, respectively. Aston Villa probably sit within that sort of calibre of club that they faced. I think Man City can hold them out regardless of Kompany's absence. And I don't see Villa coming away with anything whatsoever. So it's a very confident home win for me, not that I will be backing at those odds once again, a bit like Arsenal last week.
Well, you were right about Arsenal last week, so it'll be interesting to see if you're right again. Yeah, the market interests me. I've mentioned it before. It's even money with a couple of different bookmakers for both teams to score. If you're watching a tea time game and want to bet, at least it's something that's going to run for the 90 minutes. If City are only 1, maybe 2 goals up, I think Villa will have a chance. They'll chase the game. I don't think they're going to play for a scoreless game. I think it's going to certainly be quite intense from them. If a Bonglahore's back as well, that'd be a huge boost, I think, for Villa. It's interesting. Steve mentioned he doesn't like the idea of them coming off a great game at Liverpool. They've got nothing to lose, and I think teams like that can be dangerous. City are hurting at the moment, and frankly, their season has been, well, I wouldn't say disastrous, but it's certainly not inspired any particular confidence in Pellegrini as a manager building something for the future. I thought the most interesting thing he's done is sign Wilfried Boney in the January Christmas transfer window, because it seemed to reek of not desperation necessarily, but I need an impact, I need to do something, I need to spend some cash, and he's certainly not a bad player, and he will probably score goals for them. But I just sense that something's not right at City at the moment. They're not necessarily playing for him, and obviously we've had this week the announcement, or last week, sorry, Jurgen Klopp is now going to be on the market. Before I take your predictions on what happens in this game, do you think Pellegrini's safe irrespective of what happens this season? And do you see someone like Jurgen Klopp being the ideal man to get City back on track? I'll start with Gio.
I think he's gone. I think there's going to be a clear out of players as well. I think there's been a lot of speculation about it. Players like Nasri, Clichy, Kolarov, and I think I think they're going to get rid of Pellegrini and give the new manager a clean slate. They'll free up a lot of transfer wage budget, but don't know how much money they'll have to spend because they're not going to get a lot of money for those players necessarily. Klopp's an interesting one, but I'm not sure if City's the right club for him. I think I can see Ancelotti going there. If there's again, it's more speculation, but rumours are that Real Madrid board aren't too happy with him. He was supposed to go at the end of last season, but he won the Champions League, which kept him in it for another year. And I think he could have rock up at Man City. As where Klopp goes, I don't know. Possibly Real Madrid, I don't know, but I don't think Klopp's experienced enough yet for Man City. I think there's too many big players at Man City with big egos, and while Klopp's managed them at Dortmund, he's still a young manager.
Right, that's very fair comment. I'll just take a quick line from you, Steve, on that. Do you think possibly Jurgen Klopp could be heading to the Premier League?
I don't know whether he will or not. Like Joe said, I mean, there are options across Europe, and his experiences in Europe are present. But I think personally, I'd quite like to see him in the Premier League, managing one club or another. Perhaps, as Gio said, Man City might be a little bit too. I don't know. No, actually, I think he could probably fit in there. But in terms of predicting managers coming in and out, I think the Premier League is absolutely impossible for doing that. So I'd rather stick to my betting predictions, and I've literally just checked the half-time result again on this game, trying to replicate what I did with Arsenal last week. And if I'm going to bet on the Man City game, I'm going to go for them to be leading at half-time at 1.65. In fact, I think we could probably leave it for 10 minutes and get about 180 out of it. What I didn't tell you is last week on Arsenal, I forgot to put my half-time bet on. And I was fortunate enough I can't remember what time they scored, but I managed to get 2.3 just before they scored. So it worked out even better. So I might even just leave this one. I'm not going to be running out of my box to back 1.65 for them to lead at half-time. But if I can get 1.8, if it stays goalless for the first 10 minutes or so, I think we'll get 1.8, and that'll be my bet.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair reasoning behind it as well. I mean, I'm going to be looking at something around I'm going to probably suggest that I'll go with both teams to score. It's a boring bet, but it's something that's going to keep you entertained for the 90 minutes. City are far too short in current form for my liking to be putting in anywhere. I would have some concerns around a few different bits and pieces of City. As for Jurgen Klopp, there's one team in England that desperately needs a good manager that brings some good players. He won't go there, but it'd be delightful to see him turn up at a Newcastle. I think it would just be brilliant for the fans. It's a big club. It's a bit similar to Dortmund in the way the fans' passion's there, but it would require an awful lot of money for him to come anywhere. I think he'll be off to Italy probably, and we'll have to wait and see. But he's certainly a talented manager, probably the next Arsenal manager in waiting in my book. Gio, I'll just take a quick line from you. Any bets in the City versus Villa game you think we should have a look at?
I wouldn't be taking City to win. I'm not convinced as Steve is. I think I was hoping to get a nice price on Villa with a +2 handicap actually, but evens is a bit short for me, truth be told. But I like your bet in both teams to score as well. I think it'll be a score draw actually. I think Villa's going to get something.
It's a very lazy bet, isn't it? Both teams to score, but once you've got evens, you know that Villa aren't going to go there and park the bus. That's just not Sherwood's mentality. They might get battered, but I still think they'll go down swinging, and that's going to be hopefully the direction we head for. So I suppose now's the ideal time for us to take a dip into. I
was just going to say, I'm just looking on the app at the moment just to see what the tips are on there, just to see if the OLBG members agree with us or not. And in fact, on Burnley and Leicester, Burnley are coming out as bad value. There are 37.5% of the tips equally for Leicester and for the draw. So obviously at the price, the OLBG members are disagreeing with us and saying that the draw is actually the value bet in that game. Predictably for Manchester City, 80% of the tips are for City. But again, there are sufficient tips on Villa to actually win this game at 11-1, coming up as value. I don't think I'd be quite as brave as that. On the handicap, however, the line is 1.75 for Villa, and in fact that has come out more popular. So yeah, I think people do think that Villa are going to not get rolled over in this game.
I think that's very fair. And our members tend to look at everything and anything, and it's well worth taking a look at the app. It's difficult to tell you what's going to happen, but our members are pretty accurate usually on predictions, and they're not afraid to take on a short price. At the same time, they're not afraid to back it either. So it's always good to get a comparison of views. We'll move to, like I said, the most exciting league I think that ever exists in any football pyramid. It's got to be the Championship. Some of the fixtures you've got to keep an eye on tomorrow. We've got Brighton who face Watford, a team that's going to need the points. Brighton are safe now, we think, looking at the table. You've got, looking down the list there, Middlesbrough are away at Fulham, who again are a team that are just about safe now. Had a very average season and will be looking to get things back on track next year. Going further down there, you've got Ipswich versus Forest. Could be a little bit of a banana skin there for Ipswich, who are looking to try and cement their place within the playoffs. And the other game that caught my eye was probably, it's going to be Norwich versus Rotherham, and Rotherham are going to be absolutely steamingly angry with the fact that they've gone and had a points deduction today, which has taken them right back into the relegation battle.
Is that applicable for this season? That points deduction is applicable this season, yeah?
It is. It is, yes. So it leaves them now just a point off Millwall, who have got some renewed energy. Millwall, they face Derby at home. The New Den's never an easy place to go. I just wonder if we get a few views on the Championship. If I tell you that Watford are top up with 85 points, followed by Bournemouth on 84. You've then got Middlesbrough on 84, so it's a goal difference that keeps them and Bournemouth apart, and Norwich on 82. So, you know, there you're four looking for the automatic spots with a few games to go. Just wondered if we could get a line on the Championship and if we've spotted any value down there.
Well, I'm looking at my value prior to that points deduction. And there's going to be a wobble. They're not all going to win.
No.
I think the difficult part is identifying which will be which one will stumble. I think they're all difficult. I think I would tend to go with Brighton against Watford. I think Watford are the ones that I know. Again, I'm going against a team that are out. I'm going with a team that are out of form. But it's a lunchtime kickoff. And you know what lunchtime kickoffs do to hackers. Everyone's going to have Watford in their hacker, and Brighton are going to wreck all those lunchtime hackers, and everyone's going to be scrambling to get another one on before 3 o'clock.
Wow, that's very bold, Steve. If I just show you the app at the moment, we've got Watford in there. It's in mirror image. Just 88% of the members are backing Watford in that at 1.91. You're taking,
and therein lies the value, because the layers are shortening up Watford on the basis that everyone's piling on them and expecting them to get another 3 points and maybe secure, you know, a spot at the top there. But I think they could have a little bit of a wobble. You know, again, it's really about the value. Are Brighton really a 7-2 shot at home at this stage of the season when the pressure's on Watford? There's no pressure on Brighton. You know, they're safe as houses where they are. 6 points clear of Millwall, you know, and Rotherham in the situation they're in. I don't think they can play with a bit of freedom. They haven't got too much to worry about. Watford have to win. You know, a draw's no good for Watford. They don't want to draw at this stage of the season in the position they're in at the top there. You know that top team, those top two places are switching and changing week by week, game by game. I mean, last week we had 3 leaders of the Championship, didn't we? We had Middlesbrough at top, and then, you know, up until the 95th minute down in Bournemouth were top. You know, until that penalty, you know, late on. I just think I'm going to go for the top team to wobble away from home. You know, that's where the pressure is. And I think, again, it's just about the value. You know, there's going to be an upset, and 7-2 for me. You know, I only have to get it right.
Okay. I'm going to go completely against you and state that I think Brighton's issue this season has been goals. Houghton's already said he may make some changes. We've had a lot of lone players there. Players like Leon Best have been getting a lot of sticks and not having their chances. I think he might throw youth out there and give the fans what they want to see, which is some new faces. Could go one of each way. They could gel together suddenly and be amazing. But I would really fancy Watford, because if I'm the Watford manager, I'm telling my players, you've got a fantastic opportunity to really put some pressure on the teams around us. poor old Bournemouth, if Watford go and win about 3 or 4-0, they've got to wait till, Monday night to try and then exert some sort of pressure to get back towards them. I think Watford are in the box seat, and I think they'd be secretly quite pleased that they've got that early kickoff. Gio, have you had a little look at this game at all, or any thoughts on Watford or Brighton?
I'm with you on this one, Sam. I'm behind Watford on this. I think they're going to front bite in, to be honest. Watford have impressed me the most in Championship going forward. I think the big difference between them and Bournemouth and Middlesbrough is Watford and Bournemouth have been scoring goals. Middlesbrough have only scored 65 compared to Bournemouth's 92. And I know Bournemouth have bumped a couple of teams recently, but if it comes down to goal difference, I think Borough could be under serious pressure. And I think they've got the trickier fixture actually going to Craven Cottage. Middlesbrough's away form is not solid. They don't score much as it is, and they score even less away from home. And Fulham's that kind of team that one week they'll score loads of goals, they'll get a nice win, and then next week they'll look like a banker and they'll slip up and bust everyone's accumulators. And I think this could be a week where Fulham bust everyone's accumulators again. I'm not saying they'll win, but I think Middlesbrough might be in for a really tough game at Craven Cottage.
I think what we will see with the Fulham side going on to that game, which is Fulham at home to Middlesbrough, Fulham are going to play a few hungrier players. They've got an awful lot of these ex-Premier League players that contracts are slowly but surely winding down. Scott Parker could return there. He's a man that will give anything, no matter whether he's playing at the park with his mates or in front of 50,000 people. They've got a good, strong basis of a team, and I was really shocked at how badly they've done this year. But they've got plenty of youngsters that are semi on the fringes of being able to be first-team players. And I guess with the pressure off, the difference I see between Fulham and Brighton have just looked woeful in their games, whereas Fulham can throw in an occasional brilliant performance and score a few goals. And I just don't feel as confident with Middlesbrough. Maybe it's because I backed them at the start of the season to go up and they've let me down enough times. I don't know. But I feel like Middlesbrough could be that team that are going to just miss out. But it's an interesting game. Steve, have one of you got any thoughts on Fulham and Middlesbrough and whether you're going to try and put the hoodoo on them like you've done with Watford?
Well, no, I think, like I said last week, Fulham have let me down a few times, either by beating the team that I've backed or losing when I've supported them as well. It's not a game that I particularly want to get involved in. I think Middlesbrough, they've been quite strong. I'm not rushing out to back Fulham at that price. I don't want to back, but in fact, I'm not keen to back any of these four teams to win these games when they matter. So it's not a game that I'm overly bothered about getting involved in. If I had to, I would probably take Fulham to score, and by the same token, Middlesbrough as well. So I'd probably run down your sort of both teams to score type bet. Otherwise, it's not. There doesn't seem to be any value in the prices for me to play either of them confidently. I mean, again, Fulham are safe. Again, I know the fact that these things don't matter. Yes, they do matter. I don't think any 11 players ever go out on the pitch and think it doesn't matter if we win or lose. They always want to win. And I think when teams are looking at securing an automatic promotion place to the Premier League, let's not forget, there is a lot of pressure on there. So these teams that don't have anything to play for, they also have a bit of freedom to, they're not going to worry about losing the game. They're not going to want to, but they're not going to worry about losing the game too much. I think I'll just go. Fulham have been scoring consistently. I think they've scored in the last 14 matches, something like that. They're scoring week in, week out. The last time they failed to score was a visit to Watford. If I was having a bet, I'd have to say both teams to score, and that's as far as I'd go with it. That's
fine. The other games to touch on, which I think in some ways are the reverse of the fixtures. You've got Derby, who are within the playoff spectrum. They're not going to be pushing for automatic now. They're nicely settled there. They go away to Millwall. Now, obviously, both teams have got something to play for in that sense. Derby need to just confirm that they've got into that playoff spot, which they should do. But Millwall, they've had this almost last-minute reprieve with this point deduction facing Rotherham. Gio, do you think that could almost work in their favour, and Derby maybe not obviously going on their holidays, but may not be so worried about the idea of these sort of games when they know they're probably in the playoffs.
Yeah, if Millwall needed a lifeline, they got it earlier today. What better way to motivate your players than that by dragging Rotherham right back into the mix? But I see Derby as a tippy-tappy kind of team in the Championship, and Millwall's the complete opposite end of that. I think if there's a team that's going to give you an elbow in the box, it's them, and I think that's kind of, they'll try and bring it into that kind of game. And I think if Derby let it get into a physical game, I think Millwall could again get something a bit like Fulham. I think they could maybe just surprise them. And like you were speaking about with Middlesbrough, Derby's a team that's let me down quite a lot this season. They seem to be choking a lot. They seem to be getting up there, then just a couple of games, it's just not happening. So I wouldn't like to be back in Derby anyway, but it depends what attitude of Millwall turns up. But I think they'll be okay. Millwall, I think they'll get something out of the game against Derby.
I mean, I went and backed Rotherham to go down today around 3-1. I just think that's such a... It's either going to work one of two ways. Either going to be the most motivating thing that ever happens to a squad, or it's the most demoralising. And if you're sat as a Millwall player and you think you're gone, suddenly you've got a reprieve, you're at home, it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, your fans are going to be filling the stadium and getting behind you. I think that this will be my game where I'll take on Derby. I'm looking at the app now, and we've got 69% of members are tipping a Derby win. I'm going to take that on, and I'll be backing Millwall probably to win. I think they can drag them into it. You know, the last game we'll touch on in the Championship does feature poor old Rotherham, depending on how you look at it. They've got to have Norwich visit them on the back of really bad news. You've got to face a team that need to win. Steve, what would your mentality be in this game?
Don't know. I've not looked.
You've not looked.
I was looking at Bournemouth.
We'll you can cover Bournemouth for us then. There you go.
Come back. Have a word with Gio, and I'll have a quick look at the game, and I'll come back to you.
That's fine, Gio. You're a Rotherham player. You think you just about earned your security. You're facing a tough game at home tomorrow. Sorry. How's it going to come across for you? Is this a game you'd leave because you don't know what attitude the players are going to have?
It's a mental test for Rotherham. If they approach it in the right way, like you said, they can use it as a tool for motivation. It would be the worst thing to do is to get your heads down about it. I think someone at the club's obviously to blame, and they could maybe have foreseen this coming to an extent. And I think they could be lucky it's only 3 points in a way. I think I wouldn't be surprised there was leagues out there with tougher sanctions and just 3 points. I think they could be partly wiping their brow, thinking at least we've still got a chance to stay up there. They've got a game in hand, haven't they? They've still got a game in hand over Millwall. I think they did.
Yeah, Rotherham have got that game in hand. Obviously, they're going to
enough for them against Norwich, but I watched Norwich against Middlesbrough, and I wasn't very enthused by what I've seen by Norwich. I thought they were very plan A and no plan B type thing, and I thought
quite blunt in their approach to play.
I wasn't very. It won't make me go back them tomorrow. I'll put it that way.
No, that's absolutely fine. And I suppose we'll let Steve have the last word in the Championship with his Monday night coverage. He seems to be wanting to get Bournemouth beat most weeks, so we'll see if he's going to carry on.
I want Bournemouth to go up, and I want Bournemouth to go up as champions. Honestly, I really, really do. But 12-1 about Bolton's a big price, isn't it? You know that I'm not just saying these outside bets for the sake of looking for the big prices, but it's a big price. That said, Bournemouth did really, really well last week. Going behind, coming back, going in front, and if not for a 95th minute penalty or whatever it was against Sheffield Wednesday, they'd be sat top now. Sitting quite pretty, knowing that the rest of the 3 teams there's only 3 more teams in contention for those automatic spots, are all playing away this weekend whilst they wait till Monday and play at home. I'm not going to back Bolton. I'm not going to back Bolton at 12-1. But what I am going to do is I'm going to be quite confident that this is an overs game.
Yeah.
But Bournemouth just keep finding goals. They just keep finding goals, and they're going to score. they're going to be a bit nervous at the back, and Bolton are going to score on a Monday night as well. So over 2.5 goals is the one for it. If anything, I'd probably lay the 1.3.
Yeah, no, that's a fair shout. I think I would say as well, I just wonder with Eddie Howe and his assistant facing some disciplinary charges or comments made after a recent game, you just have to wonder if they are wobbling a little bit. You know, it's a huge. They've overachieved massively in their position, and I know a few shrewd people tipped them up at the start of the season, but I don't know many people that can honestly say they sat there and expected Bournemouth to be pushing to win this league with 2 games to go. I just don't.
Place would have been a dream for them at the start of the season to actually, get an automatic spot or even, come out as champions. I mean, that's no one would have expected.
It'd be up there with the best achievements seen in that league.
They may very well end up with a playoff place and be disappointed with that.
And that's going to be the problem. You then you almost would rather be a Derby sort of waltzing into the playoffs because you've sat around there for so long and your disappointment has got out of the way. They obviously let themselves down middle of the season. I just think if you're that team that misses out, it's so hard to raise your game. The amount of times we see the team that creeps into the playoffs having the momentum and at least getting to the final. They don't necessarily always go up, but they usually reach the final and knock out a team that have been there or thereabouts all season. Gio, any quick line on the championship? Anyone out of those 4 or 5 we've mentioned that you really fancy to go up?
Definitely Watford. I think I'm expecting them to go up as champions. They're at home. The last weekend of the season, they're at home, and Bournemouth are the only side that's away. So I think they really, really need to win on Monday. 2-7 is not a price I'll touch, though. I think they'll well win. I'm not touching that price at 2-7. It's just way too risky for me. There's no value in it whatsoever, I think. But yeah, I'll say that Bournemouth and Watford have comfortable-ish wins, and I think it could be a tricky couple of games for Middlesbrough and Norwich, though.
No, that's absolutely fine. Before we move on to our final game, we're going to run through. We've had a question in. It relates to one of the games we spoke about earlier. Alexei Alkov, thank you for your question. You can tweet them in, guys. You can ask them on the link on here. Absolutely fine. We more than welcome some questions. It's always good to test us and ask our knowledge and what you think. He says, it does look more like Leicester are staging the Great Escape this season, guys. I suppose my question would be to both yourself, Gio and Steve, and myself, are Leicester going to be that team that put the run together, that get the confidence up and get out of jail, effectively? Because they were down for the large parts of this season. Leicester have been the team people have been disappointed by. I'd love to know your thoughts on if you think they're the ones that are going to catch the eye and cruise out of trouble at the last minute and get away with it a bit. I'll start with Gio. Yeah,
they've certainly got the momentum. I think luckily for them, Sunderland and Hull are also playing really poorly at the minute. Them two are getting dragged into week by week, and I think if Hull get beat at Palace tomorrow, which I think they will, they're right back in that mix, especially. But I think Leicester really need to win at Turf Moor if they want out of it. I think a point for them might just push them a bit back in. It might give them a kick, because like I said, they've scored a lot of late goals, so they are relying on these late goals, and if they don't get one at Turf Moor, I think it might just be a wee blow to their chances of staying up. But statistically, if they do it, will be, I think, the best escape ever in terms of how much points they had around Christmas time. But I hope they do it, though. I hope they do it. Yeah, I mean, one thing, I've just looked at their fixture list, and it's actually quite in their hands, which is always a pleasant thing to have as a team that are facing relegation. They've obviously got Burnley tomorrow, which is probably one of the most winnable games they're going to have, and will help to ensure that one of their rivals around there fills the spot. They then first face a Chelsea team that, well, you wouldn't necessarily expect them anything, but they are at home, Leicester, and that's a bit of a gimme. No one's going to lose their head or get too upset if they do get beat. Their last 4 games, though, they face Newcastle at home, who frankly look a shadow of a team at the moment. Newcastle, I think my local 11-a-side team could probably get a point against them. They face Southampton at home, who could probably be settled in a position by then. Sunderland away, which could really help drag in. And the last game of the season, this will be the corker. This is the one everyone will be watching for updates. Leicester face QPR. I mean, Steve, it's in their hands, isn't it? The momentum's there.
Yeah, it probably is, to be honest. I do stick by the fact that I think Burnley will take the 3 points and leapfrog them tomorrow. I think if Leicester do get out, I think it'll be at the expense of Hull. I think Sunderland will escape. So it is, although Sunderland are only a point, I think they will get away with this. QPR, I think, are gone. I think it's just a bit of a mess down there at the moment. I think they're definitely going to go out. Yeah, Burnley are going to get those points. They're going to climb out of the bottom three tomorrow at the expense of Leicester, but I think they will fall back in it and end up going down. Yeah, I think Leicester will get out of it. I think they really will, because they've got QPR who are going to be dead and buried by the last game of the season. And you know, yeah, definitely Leicester will get out of this, and it will be Hull, QPR and Burnley that go down.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I just wanted to have a little browse actually to see what QPR were going to be facing, and I know this is going to be a popular opinion. It's very easy to say after the event, but the damage was done for QPR when Mr. Redknapp was there, and frankly, I was amazed he hung on for as long as he did before whatever happened. He felt unwell and had to leave, and it was fine to stand up and do punditry, but his knee wouldn't take sitting in the dugout. I don't know what happened, but hey, listen, if you're a QPR fan, you've got to face West Ham at home, which, I mean, some people will call it a London derby, but that's just a London team playing another London team. There's no derby in it. They could beat West Ham. Sorry, Gio, I'm going to put that out there. They've then got to play Liverpool away, Man City away, who Man City, if they get the results right, could still be battling for second place. They play Newcastle at home and then have that game away at Leicester. I can only see them getting 3 to 6 points out of their last 4 games. That's it. I think Leicester will be above them. So, Alex, I think you're probably right. I can see Leicester getting out of it. I'm gonna vote that Leicester survive.
Yeah, I agree. I think Leicester's going to do it as well. Like you said, the fixtures are in their hands. Burnley have also got some nice fixtures as well, actually. As Steve pointed out, their last 12 games, they've played 6 teams. 6 of the teams they've played have been in the top 7 last year, so they have had a tough run, but they've got those fixtures out of the way now. And Burnley's running is probably more favourable than the rest of them. And if they manage to get something at Turk Moor like Steve thinks, I think Burnley could be the bigger surprise package here.
And I'd say I've just flicked through them all now, and I think Sunderland, I fear for you guys, the last 3 games of the season, Leicester at home, then you're away for the last 2 games of the season. You're not going to get anything at Arsenal away if they're still battling away. And if by some miracle they manage to get a result against Chelsea, they could still be in the race. And then you go to Chelsea away on the last day of the season. So I think Leicester will be all right. Steve, you're smiling. What are you smiling about?
It's because I'm getting abuse on my personal Twitter because I'm not concentrating on the right game. Perhaps I'm just trying to deflect a question I don't want to answer. I don't know. Sam, just interestingly, we've got a couple of people on Twitter asking how they can ask a question to us on the Hangout.
Yeah, you should be able to do it in a couple of different ways, guys. We'll take questions either. You can just tweet them into us. I'm just looking over at the Twitter feed, having a little look to see what you guys are asking, so you can do it that way. Alternatively, you can just ask a question on the Hangout. There should just be a little Q&A tab that you can click, and you should be able to then ask us. We'll do a proper little video up just showing you how you use everything going on later into the season, because we're going to keep doing these probably on a Friday, and we're going to do a few playoff specials as well, because they're great games to have a bet on. I know a lot of people like to try and get the 3 up. I've never managed it myself. I think I've got 2 out of 3, which is quite a painful treble to go missing. But yeah, just keep those questions coming in. We like hearing from you guys, and it's all about our members, and that's why Gio's on here tonight. And feel free, contact ourselves. We'll get as many of you on. We'll head into talking about the best game of the weekend, in my eyes, as a neutral, and it's Arsenal versus Chelsea. Interestingly, we spoke in length about Chelsea last week, Steve and I. I felt Manchester United could get something. I think I was still quite unlucky about that. Chelsea played really negative football but got the result. It's a difficult one. Gio, what's your take on Chelsea this season? Are they worthy champions? Is it in the bag?
Yeah, without being anything fancy, they've done the job, haven't they? They can grind out results, which I think is what sets them apart from teams like Arsenal. They can dig in and grind that out, as they showed against Man U. Mourinho didn't have to attack Man U. He knew a point would be enough, but they managed to nick all 3. And I think it's going to be the same against Arsenal. A point will do him, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, I think they're worthy champions. When you talk about team of the year and that, when people are doing their team of the season, there's at least 4 or 5 Chelsea players in that team, and there's maybe 1 or 2 from the other top 4 sides, and that's it. So I think that reflects what people's opinions on Chelsea are.
No, I think that's very fair. Chelsea, for me, are a team that I don't think this Premier League season will go down as vintage, and that's shown by the fact they're not going to run away with it. I always like to see two teams up there battling it out, getting away from the pack. It's been an interesting season. I don't think it's been vintage. Eden Hazard's been the difference this season for me. Chelsea, it's difficult. I'm looking at the predicted team news. They could play without a striker, you know. They might not run Drogba into the ground any more than they already have been. He looked a spent force for me recently, and Diego Costa, whatever they've done with him, his hamstring injury's still there. It's still a problem. And my biggest fear as a neutral watching this game is Chelsea are going to roll up. They're going to play 10 men behind the ball, possibly leave Fabregas a bit further advanced up the pitch as a false nine, or just Eden Hazard up there to do it on his own. Do you think there's a risk that possibly we could be looking at a bit of a drab game, that Mourinho's fearful of? It's more to lose than there is for winning the game. Gio, do you think that's a fair comment?
Yeah, I've gone for the boring draw. When we talk about the scores later, I think Mourinho's just going to set up not to lose. It'll do more harm to Arsenal, the draw, than it will to Chelsea. It'll just be one step closer to the league. But like we were talking about the relegation, I think this game could tie in with it, because, as you said, Leicester play Chelsea, and if Chelsea win this, it effectively might win them the title. And I just wonder if they'll be less resting on their laurels a little when they go to Leicester midweek. You know, I just wonder if this game could actually affect the bottom of the table without people realising it.
I like the indirect thinking. Steve, have you got a little bit of a view on Chelsea's negative tactics?
Yes, they're negative, but they're effective, aren't they? You know what you're going to get with Mourinho at this stage of the game. Yeah, they do play, some good football and score goals during the season, but right now, 1-0 wins are all they need. Clean sheets, in fact, they don't even need to win now. Just clean sheets or points are all they need right now. So, yes, it's not pretty. It's not pretty if you're an opposing fan, and you can understand Man United's frustrations last week at losing and probably playing the better football during the game. But it's not about, it is about the tactics. It's not about the style in which you get those points. A 1-0 filthy win is good enough, and if that gets you the Premier League title, then no Chelsea fan's going to argue with that, I'm sure. And anyone who's betting on Chelsea to win are not going to argue if they win, negatively either. That said, I've got this down as an Arsenal win.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I really, really do. Again, it's based on the value. I think the price is quite good for them at home. And Chelsea know they only need to take a point. I mean, if they take all 3 points, it's game over. A point is, just about enough. I don't. Does a point actually get them? Is a point enough at this stage?
Well,
I'll just hark back. Somebody wrote a great blog on OLBG about laying Chelsea at this stage for the Premier League title, and he's come up with some really, really good points. If they do lose this game, it does make things, they've got to lose more than just the one. But I don't think they're going to win every game right through to the end, and I'd be more than happy to take Arsenal to win this game. And then Chelsea aren't going to be too bothered about losing this game. Yes, they'd like to tie things up right now, but it's not the end of the world if they lose this. They're going to, if they don't tie up the league this week, next week, they'll tie it up the week after. They're going to win the Premier League. But they don't have to do it tomorrow, or Sunday, sorry, and I think Arsenal will win.
Well, I'm going to break it to you gently. Mourinho has played 12 games against Arsene Wenger, and he's never lost. I'm not saying he's necessarily got his number, but he's always seemed to have that. I think he's always had that edge over him, and I think he loves having that edge over him. There's obviously a bit of needle there. I'm surprised to see on the app, actually. It's still quite early days, and what I would say is when you're looking at the app, you really want to be looking on the day of the game, because that's when a lot of our better tipsters tend to get involved. But at the moment, Arsenal are edging as favourite selection, and I thought the draw would be up there, but it isn't for now. Gio, Arsene Wenger's record against Mourinho being terrible. How can Arsenal win this game?
Well,
by scoring more goals than Chelsea.
that's There's a big good point about Mourinho, but I think Wenger's always been a bit tactically stubborn recently. But I think he's changed recently. I had one notice when I was looking at the Arsenal's fixtures. In their last 6 games against teams that were in the top 7 last season, they've won 4 of them and they've only lost once. So I think Wenger's started to change his side a little. Remember when they went to the Etihad, they played quite defensive football for what Arsenal is known as. And they tried that at Tottenham and got ripped apart for it. Tottenham took them apart. But I don't think Chelsea are going to attack Arsenal. And to back up Steve's point, Chelsea have only got 3 clean sheets in their last 7 away league games. And for a team that we think has been negative and grinding out results with clean sheets, they've only got 3 in the last 7. So they're not that reliable defensively as you might first think.
No, and that's a very fair point. I think maybe it's part envy from people who describe Chelsea as negative. It's probably part frustration. You know, we can all remember the Mourinho early years there, where he had Robin and Duff on either wing and a Drogba in his prime, absolutely tearing teams to shreds, and that's not how they're doing. I guess they're winning by just enough, and there's no shame in that when you're challenging for 4 titles like they were. Now they're down to just the league. I think the Premier League deserves to see a bit of a show from them, but if there's one manager that's going to win in his own way, it's going to be Mourinho, and all power to him for doing it. I just think this game, I don't know how people can back Arsenal. I think Chelsea will do just enough to get the draw, and it's gonna nullify the title race, and we'll all have to look at the bottom of the table. Steve, any final thoughts on this one?
Yeah. If Arsenal score first, what do Chelsea do then?
Bring on Drogba.
If he's on the pitch, if they bring off...
They'll score in the first 10 minutes. They're not going to be very negative then, are they? I think this game has got goals, and I've got a great big, massive price tip for everybody this week on the correct score. This is the game that I'm tipping a nice, big, correct score. Arsenal have scored first at home 11 times this season. I think they're going to score first this week, and I think the game's going to open up, and I think there's going to be goals, 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 goals. That's right, a total of 5. 3-2 Arsenal at 33-1. No one's expecting it. No one's expecting it. There's your value.
I was going to venture. I haven't done it yet. I was going to venture into the card market and see what a red card is, because I fancy there could be a little bit of needle in this as well. Listen, I can't ever put somebody off a 33-1 shot. That's perfectly plausible. I think if any team is going to break down Chelsea's defensive brilliance, it's a team like Arsenal that going forward can look fantastic. My worry is they're still yet to be effective enough in front of goal for me. They struggled past Reading last weekend, really. I wish Arsenal had an old-fashioned number 9. I just wish they had a striker that would really shoot the ball into the net, because the creativity's all there. They've got a fantastic setup. Now they've got Coquelin playing in that defensive midfield role. They've found a bit of steel as well. The summer will be very intriguing for Arsenal. They've really performed well this season, and I still think they play the most attractive football in the league, and I say that as a neutral. But for me, I think it's going to be boring Chelsea rather than boring Arsenal, and I'll be going with something like a 1-0, Eden Hazard to score first for me. Gio, any final thoughts?
Well, just to go against Steve, one of the things I noticed when Chelsea played, the last 5 games Chelsea played against a side that finished in top 7 last season, they've all finished with under 2.5 goals in it, and I think that just reflects Mourinho left, right and centre. I'm going for a draw and under 2.5 goals, so I cover the 1-1 and the 0-0 just in case it really is that draw, and that's 3-1. And I think that's quite a big value for just the draw and there not being much goal. I think it's just going to be a standard Mourinho turn up, nothing fancy, and just leave at the point and pretty much title over.
No, I think that's a very fair assessment as well. I like the fact Steve's gone for goals, because I'll be watching, and as a neutral, that's what we all want to see. We're coming towards the end of the show so far, but we're going to probably take in from you guys. I'll ask for your best bets of the weekend. If there's anything that you've spotted out there that we should be looking at, we'll take anything from UK or Europe wide. We certainly will have a little look. I had a comment in just from Lawrence. Great to see you watching. He said, first time hangout for me. Appreciate all the comments and opinions. Well, that's what we're here for, Lawrence. We'd love to get you on. Drop us a line or just send us a tweet, and we'll try and get you on next week, because It's what we're all about. It's not about listening to my own voice. I've got two expert opinions with me tonight, and we need some more experts to come join us and share their views as well. Just wondering, Gio, have you got anything north of the border or anything slightly more exotic?
The one for me would be Aberdeen. I live in Aberdeen. I follow Aberdeen, just so you know I'm not just speaking about nonsense. But we head to Inverness Calais on Saturday. Everybody will remember that Calais beat Celtic in the semi-final in extra time, and I think the odds have actually pushed Aberdeen out. That makes them unmissable at 13 to 10. We've won the last 3 against them, unbeaten in the last 5 head-to-head. We have a really good record over Calais. It's a bit of like a closest thing you're going to get to a derby up here is Inverness, and I think we're in a good run of form. Adam Bruni scored in again, and I think Celtic clinched the title midweek. Unfortunately, if Dundee had won, I think it would have blown it open, just a 5-point lead, and Aberdeen still play Celtic. But 13 to 10 for Aberdeen to win, I think, is good value, and at the same price you can get QPR beat West Ham. Unfortunately,
not confident in your own team there, and Steve's face is a picture. I'll cut to you now, Steve. Bet of the weekend, Portsmouth to get thumped?
No! West Ham to win.
West Ham? Wow, okay, we've got a West Ham fan telling us to back against them, and we've got a non-West Ham fan telling them they're going to beat QPR.
Now I'm going to have to rethink it. I mean, Gio knows a lot more about West Ham than I do. So, yeah, that sort of dampened my enthusiasm slightly. Perhaps then, I mean, I've got West Ham and Blackburn written down. So, I think that's probably... no, I'm still going to play the pair. I still think QPR, as I said earlier, are doomed, and I think West Ham will put another nail in the coffin for them. Whilst Blackburn are going to Huddersfield, and at better than 2 to 1, I think that's a good away win bet this weekend. So, yeah, on top of my earlier predictions for Burnley, Man City to be leading at half time, a home win for Brighton, and a ridiculous 3-2 match for Arsenal at a big price. West Ham and Blackburn away wins, a couple of picks that I'll be playing as well.
Yeah, excellent. I just had a little flick through low down the league, and I can see that Swindon, who have been in absolute freefall, take on Preston away, who are flying high and have been performing beyond expectation so far this season. Really, they've suddenly found that they needed to win some games, and they've done it. Whereas Swindon have done the complete opposite. Swindon look a huge price, but the confidence is with Preston, and they'll probably be one for those accumulators. League 2 is a bit of a minefield for me, so I won't be touching anything there. But there's plenty of good bets to be had around the relegation teams as well. I mean, this time of year, I think it's fantastic personally, because you've got teams playing for nothing that suddenly get results, and teams playing for something that can't. It's one of those minefields out there. If you can get some nice prices though, 12 to 1 about Bolton, for example, you only need one of those to come in a blue moon and you're laughing. Just a couple of last minute comments. Steve, we've had someone take you on your Arsenal score prediction. Lawrence, good evening again. You're going for 1-0 to the Arsenal, the classic. So he's not worried about Mr. Mourinho's perfect record.
I'm just looking at... sorry, I'm doing what I've been... I was just looking at the top tips for the weekend on the app again. And funnily enough, they all seem to be coming in Europe. 1.62 for Real Madrid against Celta Vigo on Sunday.
Even with all those injuries as well, though, Steve, you know, they've had a busy time of it recently.
Yeah, they have, but I quite like the look of that one. I've not looked into the game too much, but I do trust the OLBG tipsters, and that's right up there. Three green tick value.
Excellent.
Bet they're 100% of all tips are on Real to do that. So yeah, I'll be taking a look at that one on Sunday as well. And of course, you know, La Liga, that's not over yet. Bundesliga's over. Bayern Munich have wrapped that one up. Serie A, that's over. Juve have cleaned up this year. It's really League One, and the Premier League's probably over. So Ligue 1 in France, we've got PSG and Lyon fighting it out at the top, and Real and Barca, and I'm quite looking forward to seeing how those two pan out in the next couple of weeks.
Well, they could, of course, be meeting each other in the Champions League final as well if things go the right way. So quite a good couple of weeks, really, to see a few potential clashes that are really impacting. And, hey, wouldn't it be great to see them take each other on the final? Just leaves me really to say thank you for you guys watching at home. We're going to have another hangout, actually, on Sunday evening. We've got our very own boxer that we sponsor. Frankie Madhouse is going to be joining us. We're talking
Frankie who? Frankie Monkhouse.
Monkhouse. Apologies. Couldn't quite read it off my screen. I obviously need glasses.
You don't want to upset him, I tell you.
Yeah, he's going to be joining us to talk all about the Manny Pacquiao versus Mayweather fight, which is going to be captivating us for the next week or so. All the hype to come. So we'll have him on. We'll be talking all things boxing. That's Sunday evening. You can just tune in via the Google Plus page. Keep your comments coming in on that. Guys, we want to get as many of you on as we can. This is all about the OLBG community. Don't forget, download the app and see what we're saying. If you don't know what OLBG is, visit the website or just download the app. You can get one of the links off the showcase on the right and download it and have a go. It's free to use. Who knows, might help you get some winners because, well, I know Steve will need it after this weekend when all his tips don't come in. But thank you for joining us. I want to really say thank you to Gio. Have a great weekend, Gio. Best of luck with your tips.
Thank you. No problem.
We'll get you back on soon, hopefully. And Steve, who knows, could be another winning weekend for you.
Fingers crossed, and I'm even more enthused now because V-Dub from OLBG has also said that Pompey are going to get a draw at Mansfield, so I'll be more than happy with that.
A draw at Mansfield. Wow, that's lofty aspiration.
Calm down.
For a team that won the FA Cup all of about 5 to 7 years ago now. Goodness. Yeah. Well, thank you for watching, guys. Really appreciate all your time. And we'll be back next week. But don't forget that boxing hangout on Sunday night. We'll be back next Friday to talk more football. And don't forget to tweet us or add us on the Google Plus page. And we'll try and get as many of you on as we can. Have a great weekend.
Cheers.